Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. I am thrilled today to have a doctor in the house. So we have Dr. Ray, Dr. Reynolds, Kairus here today, otherwise known as NYC Streets MD. Dr. Ray, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Nika. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued. I want to get into your story because even on your LinkedIn, your summary is pretty evocative. It makes somebody want to know more about you and your story and your journey. So going from being shot at, arrested, to now being a doctor, a paramedic, an EMT, and providing health knowledge to people through social media and in real life. Let's get into it. So tell us about where did you start? Tell us about your journey and how you got to be who you are.
Yeah, so basically I'm just the stereotypical New York City kid who was raised in a poverty-stricken area by a single mother on welfare without a father figure. I ended up leaning on the wrong father role models, which were basically hip hop music, gangster rap, gangster movies, and like the gangsters from my neighborhood and the gangsters in my family. It's kind of crazy. My goals as an early teenager were to be incarcerated for something more violent than my relatives.
Wow.
Yeah, like my mother did her best to like raise me right, but there was too many influences. So you know how they say, like, you are the sum total of the people you hang out with. So I was consuming so much content. Today we call it content. That time it was just movies and music. And then everything in my surroundings was leading me down death or jail. You know, it wasn't until I got one step closer to death, like someone was shooting at me. They tried to kill me. And then I eventually found out who they were. And as I was planning payback, you know, I had like this whole group of deported gangsters with me in the Dominican Republic ready to like help me commit suicide or like to kill this person. When I got that echo in my head, listen, if you keep going down this path, you're going to end up dead or in jail. And I always heard that voice. But this one time I paid attention to it. You know, and then I ended up eventually entering and becoming an EMT in 2003. I became an EMT, just seeking EMT, emergency medical technician, just basically working on the ambulance. I was seeking job security. Because where I'm from, if you have a big screen TV and you have a city job with a steady paycheck, you made it. That's success. So that's all I wanted. But eventually it morphed into something bigger where 20 years later, I've been a healthcare provider for 20 years. And I went from EMT in 2003 to paramedic in 2007 to medical doctor degree in medicine, even though I was a high school dropout. In 2017. And today in 2023, you know, I'm a medical doctor online and I've been able to reach over 4 million people worldwide.
That's amazing.
So, yeah. It's like the power of the internet, you know? And, you know, it's a testimony of the power of branding, which is, you know, something that you mention a lot, you know?
Yeah. Well, so take us through that high school dropout. So you dropped out of high school, you were living this fast life. You had a moment in time where you went from having one frame of mind where you're like, I want to go to jail and be the biggest, baddest, you know, do something worse than you said than your other family members, to then having that shift of, oh no, I want to survive. I want to thrive. I want to change my life. So talk us through that. And then how do you use that to help inspire people today?
Yeah, it's because I always had a conscious call. You know, we're all pre-wired. We all have this software. We all have this thing inside of us that guides us towards our destiny. The only thing is sometimes we drown that voice out with gluttony and selfish thoughts and selfish behavior. So no one wants to wake up, for example, fatter and broker. Yet, even though you're not supposed to be eating that double quarter pounder with bacon and cheese, you do it anyway. Even though you were not supposed to make that investment in something that is going to give you a return on your money, you did it anyway because you didn't listen to your conscience. So what happened with me was I always had this conscious call of being the good guy. Even though I was around all these things, I was more like a voyeur. I wasn't really partaking hands-on in what they were doing. I was participating, but I was just observing because I felt bad. Like whenever I used to see people get robbed at gunpoint, at knife point, or being surrounded by a bunch of people and just getting jumped, I was always the guy like, yo, the cops are coming. Yo, hurry up. The cops are coming. The cops were not coming.
Interesting.
But I was saying it to like, that's the only thing that in their blackout moment they would listen to, because no one wants to be incarcerated, rightfully, you know? So I would say that just so they could leave the person alone. I'd rather just run with them instead of having to witness one more second of this person being hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what does this have to do with the listener? The listener has to understand that we all have this call.
Mm-hmm.
You eat that one Oreo, that's just one Oreo. Then you eat the whole sleeve. You know that consciousness or that feeling of guilt, that's your conscience. Or like you ever woke up one day, I know I used to have this problem where I wake up after a weekend of hanging out, hungover, like I'll never drink again. And then you do it anyway, you know? So I just got tired. I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. Yeah. Like literally, there was a point in my life where my kidneys were failing me. I was 70 pounds heavier. I had an autoimmune disease, eczema and psoriasis covering up my whole body. I was 70 pounds heavier. I was coursing a divorce. I had 2 kids while in medical school, amputating little kids' arms and holding people's brains in my hands while training to become a doctor and drinking 6 cups of coffee per day. And it was eating me alive inside. I was addicted to pornography. I was addicted to prostitution. I was addicted to drugs and nicotine and alcohol while going to medical school. And I graduated, but, you know, there was a time where, you know, I kept getting that guilty feeling is what I'm trying to tell you. After like doing all those things, like, come on, man, you could do better. Like this was my self-talk. You could do better. But then after a while, I was just like, listen, I'm going to do better. Mm-hmm. And this is what led me to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's a whole lot more to unpack. Like to become an EMT, did you have to have a GED or a high set? Did you have to have your high school equivalency or do that first?
Yeah. So I was lucky enough to like have the GED. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough to go into a medical school that the only prerequisite for pre-med was a GED.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I went to medical school in the Dominican Republic. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a lot of transitions for sure.
Yeah. So EMT though in New York, and then you became a paramedic. And then what prompted you to go to medical school? You just wanted to keep on learning and provide more service to people? Like was some of the guilt that you had like eating away at you and wanted you to switch to like just doing as much as you could to put goodness out?
Well, I got to tell you, the first thing I got to tell you when I hear my experience on the ambulance was that I got to share with the public that this was not at a country club. This was not in the beautiful lights that you see in New York City postcards. This was in the South Bronx. Mm. This was like in those dangerous parts of New York that you hear about on the news. Mm-hmm. Like this is where I work, right? Like I stay very close to the streets. That's why, you know, my Instagram handle has the word streets in it, right? Because I want to like shine and be a beacon of hope for these people. But what encouraged me to go ahead and go enter medical school was that prior to that thought, I thought it was impossible. Mm. You know, I thought that becoming a doctor was only for a select few. Mm-hmm. But I started applying the self-improvement information that I was consuming, because one of the things that allowed me to transition my entire life was self-development, like self-improvement. Like, I don't know if the listeners may remember Barnes and Noble. Mm-hmm. Barnes and Noble.
Hey, we still have them out here. I'm on the other coast. We still have a few of those.
Gotcha. Yeah. Barnes and Noble, they had like a shelf that was all catered to self-development. And I was thankfully introduced to this information. And one of the things I learned was, hey, if you could do it, I could do it. If it's been done, it could be done. So I kept seeing these Asian doctors. I keep seeing these African doctors with really heavy accents. Like it was obvious that they were not originally from America. Mm-hmm. And as I used to bring in patients, the shot victim, the stab victim, the car accident, I would give a report to them and hear their accent. I'm like, wow, that's commendable. Like, you know, I put myself in their shoes. I'm like, these people, they learned English. They took the board exams. Mm-hmm. They did everything they had to do to come chase the American dream from their country of origin. And now they're here. And I'm like, I was born and raised here. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, if they could do it, I could do it. That's one of those initial sparks. Mm. But what put the nail in the coffin was that I met a resident. His name is Dr. Adolfo Albino, and he's Dominican. I'm Dominican. He had my complexion. He looked and smelled like, you know, pretty much. And we had a lot in common. And he told me, hey, listen, I did it. You could do it. And then once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
You know, once you see like a billionaire's bank account, or you sit in their car, you're like, wait, this is real. Like I could do it too, because this person has blood flowing through their veins just like I do. So that's how I went from high school dropout to becoming a doctor, was because I allowed myself to be mentored.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because you mentioned you had a lot of negative role models around you growing up, but then you found some positive mentors and role models, such as the Dominican doctor. Were there other people who were instrumental too in saying, hey, you know what? You can do it. You can get your GED. You can reach levels of success.
Yeah. There's points in your life where those different phases, you'll have different mentors. Mm-hmm. So like in my initial phase of entering healthcare, I just wanted a big screen TV and a steady paycheck.
Right.
And I wanted to get away from the street. But then I met a 9/11 survivor. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, like this guy's like a hero. He's my partner. We're working together, you know? Then that was like my EMS mentor, I guess you could call it, my emergency medical service mentor. Then I met Ophi. That's his nickname, Dr. Alvino's nickname. And then I met Ophi. Then I became a doctor. So now I have an online mentor. So it's like different phases of your life, you'll have different mentors. Mm-hmm. And your goal is to show them, this is my thought process. When a mentor changes your life, you feel an abundance of appreciation. Mm-hmm. When someone gives you guidance and they help you, you're just like, wow, you changed my family tree. I love you. Mm-hmm. And the number one way to show love, as per me, is results. Like literally, if you really love your mother, then you need to become a beast. Mm-hmm. If you really love your kids, then become the best version of yourself. So if you really love your mentor, take the information they taught you and show them what you do with it. You know, like if you notice, my speech is very dense because I leverage emotional motivation. Mm-hmm. Like I look into my kids' eyes, you know, like deeply, you know, like I'm not just looking at my kids. I'm like trying to make a movie out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, you know, the movie Avatar when they're like, I see you.
Yeah.
This is how I feel like as I walk through life, because I've been like on the other side of it where I was low level, where I was depressed, where my confidence was really low, where I had suicidal thoughts, where I was basically suffering in silence. So now that I'm here, you know, I'm squeezing every last drop out of it. Yeah.
How did your friends and family react when you got out of the gangster lifestyle and made this transition into the healing and health modalities?
My mother was very proud.
Yeah.
She was originally kind of like, damn, man, my son is the black sheep, you know, of the family. But then she transitioned from that to like, wow, you know, my son's a paramedic. Oh, like we used to have visitors that were on wheelchairs and she'll be like, I know who can handle that. Get my son, get my son. As soon as I did my EMT course, I found out how to take a blood pressure. And immediately in my mother's eyes, I was already a doctor. Like she's like, he's a doctor. Wow. He could take a blood pressure, you know, and a few years later, I became a doctor. So definitely one of the things I remember the most is that making that transition made my mother very proud. Mm-hmm. And, you know, she raised me by herself. So it's very important for me to make her proud and just, you know, remind her of the sacrifices she made. Because without her, I'd be dead.
Yeah.
You know, she intervened while I was like spiraling out of control, you know, and she brought me into this earth. So like I said, guys, whoever's listening and you love your mom, you know, like the other day I was doing burpees, you know, this exercise. I decided to do 300 burpees, right?
You're crazy.
Yeah.
Burpees are like least favorite exercise.
Yeah. No, that's because you got to face it more often. It could become your favorite. It's kind of like math. You know how like people be like, I don't like math. But then they're like, I'm not good at math, but it's probably because you've been avoiding it.
Right.
You know? So if you do it, you'll learn to love it. And this is what happens with me. Like originally I didn't like it, but now, you know, what I was saying was that this day I was decided to do 300. Mm-hmm. And my kids were there. By burpee like 57, I was out of breath, but I was like, I said I'm gonna do 300. I did the 300. And while I was all veiny and like my muscles were showing and I had no shirt on, sweating, and my mother was watching me, I just looked at myself like, look, Ma, you gave birth to me. Like, it was just like, look, this is what came out of your body. Like, you gave birth to a real man. You know, this is like my intensity at the moment because I was leveraging the mind-body connection. So I was very intense in the moment. And this is what I mean. If you want to show appreciation to someone you love, whether it's your spouse, your mother, your mentor, your kids, anyone in your life, you know, things that are so important are worth repeating. Hence the fact why I'm repeating this again. Mm-hmm. You just got to become a beast, but not just in one area. Like become financially free. have an impact on the world, be healthy, be strong mentally and physically, like have good energy. Because I was like that cat with the arched back who was ready to attack you. That was me. Like I was toxic. I was freaking nuclear waste.
Wow.
Like if you were to speak to one of my classmates from medical school when I was going through all that, I would sit by myself. You would think I farted or something. Like everyone just stayed away from me because I was like lashing out. You know, I was really stressed out. So, you know, I'm speaking from experience.
Yeah. Well, and you were saying when you were going to medical school, you were married, you had kids. You also still had a lot of other demons that you were struggling with. You said pornography, a lot of other stuff. So how did you get through medical? Like knowing that you still had these demons and things you were working through, how were you able to successfully get through medical school? And then, what happened next? Because you were in Dominican Republic doing medical school. At some point you came back to New York.
Yeah. So basically I barely got through. I graduated, I got my doctorate degree in medicine, but I was performing suboptimally. I was living a low-level existence. So I was able to get through and graduate, but I was still dealing with all that. So, to the listeners, if you're successful in your own right, let's say you have a high 6-figure or 7-figure company, yet you have bad habits. Imagine if you got rid of those bad habits. Imagine if you increased your discipline. Imagine if you had the right mindset along with the life experiences that you had. So, this is what happened to me. Like once I took the weight of the world off my shoulders, pretty much, like I've been clean off alcohol for 24 months already. It's been 2 years. If you look at my Instagram, I've been posting every single day for the last 2 years. I haven't missed one day. Every day, numerous times a day. And one of the reasons why is because I already had the work ethic from becoming a doctor. And then I had the discipline and the self-confidence and the trust in myself from quitting the alcohol. But the moral of the story is if you're able to perform at a high level with all this baggage on, once you take it off, you're like off to the races. And this is why, like, being on the internet, this is why reaching 4 million people for me is just like the tip of the iceberg. Like this, can I curse?
Go for it.
Yeah, this shit is easy. Literally.
Yeah. So talk about the 4 million. Talk about where you're at now, what you're doing and how you reach people.
Yeah. So basically I provide value, like, hey, this is how you overcome depression. Hey, this is how you overcome addiction. Hey, here's some perspective on this thing that's causing you issues. And then I'm leading by example. You have a doctor speaking about health who takes a fucking cigarette break in between patients, or you'll have someone trying to teach you about money and they ain't got none. So you got to have a lot of hypothetical people on the internet. You have a lot of hypothetical people. I'm not one of them. Like, Google me. I'm in the fucking Journal of Medical Toxicology, and it's one of those things that when you become undeniable, the universe conspires on your behalf. Like, there's different ways to navigate, like you have the SEO, like you mentioned, the hashtags, the repurposing of content, all that stuff works. But for all that stuff to work, you need to work first. And then like the intensity behind the content that you're creating needs to be palpated through the screen, because like we've been able to detect authenticity through the screen. We need to like connect. Yeah. So, for me, reaching the 4 million people is nothing. It's something to be proud of, but it's like nothing compared to what it's going to be. Because I went from like holding people's brains in my hand and helping amputate a little kid's arm while becoming a doctor to now putting hashtags on videos. like it's just too easy. It really is. It really is. Like, it becomes a mountain when you look at it as such.
Are you still working day to day in the medical field aside from your work online? Yeah,
so I moonlight as a paramedic every once in a while because I have a passion project. Like, I have a YouTube channel that is mostly catered toward new healthcare providers, new EMTs, new paramedics. I'm like their virtual preceptor, their virtual mentor. And it's like a passion project for me where, I've uploaded almost 500 videos on that channel. Wow. Yeah. And it's basically like just giving them tips and stuff, because eventually they might be the ones treating my mother or they might be the ones treating your mother. Yeah. And I would love to be a positive impact on healthcare providers. Because one of the things I hate is like hypocritical healthcare providers. So I'm just trying to not complain about it, but provide the solution. So when I have this YouTube channel, I can't be making it from the couch in my house. You know what I mean? Like, I can't talk about like back to being undeniable. I get on the ambulance, but not only do I get in the ambulance, I get on the ambulance in the South Bronx and I'll record myself. Look, I'm in the South Bronx. Look at the cross street location.
Mm-hmm.
So when people see it, like, you have haters, you have naysayers, you have people that are just, if you give them $1,000, they're upset because you didn't give them 1,500. Like, I just gave you $1,000. What the hell? So you'll have naysayers, but I'm undeniable. As a paramedic, like, there's things I need to work on. Everybody's flawed. But as a paramedic, I'm the best paramedic to ever exist, ever. And you're smiling. You're like, man, I love that confidence, right? Because you identify with it. That smile, you're the person I want to talk to. Because that's the reaction that I would have. Like, yeah, talk that shit, bro. You know what I mean?
Well,
because it's like, this is how you should feel.
Yeah, it's also that thinking about where you came from and where you started to now have you that confidence to say you're undeniable, to do all the things that you've done, to put your life back together, and then to be helping other people learn how to do it as well.
Yep. That's what I wanted to bring up, because if you're interested in getting online and branding yourself, definitely talk to Anika, have her guide you through the process and the do's and don'ts, right? That's something that you cannot ignore, but also remember the other half of it. For her work to work, you need to work.
Yeah.
You need to meet her halfway, like give her quality stuff, because the internet is unbiased. The internet is unbiased. Like, listen, either you're good or you're not.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, like, I made a video saying this, and the EMS community, my colleagues, the people who were supposed to support me, they lynched me online.
Really?
Yeah, like, I was laughing. I'm like, look at all these fucking losers. Like, literally, guys, whoever's interested in pursuing social media, don't make the mistake I made and respond to those people.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. Do this instead. This is what I do. I learned this the hard way. I say, hey, thanks for commenting. Yeah. That's it.
Grace.
Hey, thanks for commenting. Thanks, because they're helping the algorithm. They're helping you. They're sharing your content.
Right.
Attention is attention. And last but not least, Anika's winning. Did you see her reaction? She smiled because she's a winner. Anyone who's feeling offended, irritated, or intimidated by what you're posting is a person who's dealing with their own demons.
Right.
Like, think about the person with road rage. They're losing in life. Because if you just made an extra $35,000, you look at your spouse is a 10 out of 10. Your kids are healthy. You live in a nice house. Your car is nice and clean. You're well groomed. Someone honking the horn at you is probably not going to affect you.
Right.
Because you're living like this optimal existence for that point in time. So whenever I see people lashing out, throwing stones while living in a glass house, I actually feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
It took me a while to realize this, though,
That's definitely a hard situation. And I completely agree with what you're saying. I had an article once about my daughter not getting into a school because they said she was bossy. And I'm like, she's going to kindergarten. I'm glad she knows who she is and that she's asking questions and being inquisitive about what you're trying to tell her to do. There was a lot of people commenting on the article afterwards and judging me, judging my daughter, judging our family picture and like, oh, look, they have the perfect family picture with their dogs and blah, blah, blah. And I think anytime that you're posting, like you said, you can be posting trying to do something good. There's always going to be the people who are not happy in their own lives, who have nothing better to do than go online and start making comments. But if you're secure and confident in who you are, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
And we need to take a step back. Those same people probably don't even have their fucking picture on their profile.
Right.
Their picture's probably private. Their page is probably private. Imagine those motherfuckers were to share their web browser history.
Mm-hmm.
They have all types of fucking disgusting pornography on there as well. Like, they're hiding some. A person posting negative stuff on your comment while you're trying to brand yourself is a perfect example of a person who you should not pay attention to. Because I'll look at the people who are like giving me bad energy online, and then I'll just look at their profile if it's fucking public, because most of the time it's just like private pages. Like, I've had people create pages about me. Like, literally, like, they start a new email. They open up a new email.
Wow.
They open up a new Instagram. They grab my pictures, screenshot them, and put them on the post, and then just write their own caption. Like, how much time do you really have on your hands? Like, what the fuck, But the reason why I mention it is because most of the time their pages are on private.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it's not, you look at them with a righteous eye. And you'll see, like, no wonder they're posting this. Like, this one guy, he was overweight, he was balding, he was just like posting like really long paragraphs about like asthma, Like, he's one of those paramedics who wanted to be a doctor but gave up on it because he didn't have the balls to fucking do it. So then when he finds a young minority, muscular, being outspoken, it's like a reminder of what he gave up on.
Yeah.
So it's like, I felt for him. I felt bad for him, you know? So basically, long story short, don't take it personal, because these motherfuckers, the same people who trying to belittle you, they won't pay your light bill. Right. If they cut your light. So like, why would you even pay attention to this hypothetical person over the internet who won't even help you if you were in times of need?
Wow. Dr. Ray, what's next for you?
What's next for me? I recently felt very comfortable with the business to consumer aspect of entrepreneurship. And now I've launched a business to business portion of my services. So I'm going to be entering corporate health, corporate wellness, and just basically, you know, I went from the existence that I shared to now living my best life. Like, I went from being divorced, obese, with all those addiction problems, to now being remarried. My wife is 14 years younger than me, living a life of my creation. I just had a brand new baby daughter.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I have 2 sons from my previous marriage. And I feel that it's my duty to pay this forward.
Yeah.
So I've been doing it, getting my feet wet, for lack of better terms, with a one-on-one basis and small group settings. But now it's time to bring it to a larger scale with corporate. Because, you know, I sign up, let's say, a company who has 200 employees. That's 200 people. Right. That I'm able to impact. And something as simple, guys, just an actionable item. If you're feeling stressed, back to the burpees, do 100 burpees. By burpee 27, you're so busy trying to catch your breath that you forgot what you were anxious about.
Right.
And this is one of the reasons why I'm not working in the hospital. Because like 99% of what people suffer from could be remedied or made manageable with a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah. Some more preventative medicine. You were talking earlier about the mind-body connection. So making sure people are really in tune with who they are, what they need at that time. Like you said, where you have to go to the hospital because you're having a heart attack, you're having a stroke, you're too stressed out, you're having other physical manifestations of whatever unresolved trauma or issues you have.
Yeah, for sure. One of the biggest mistakes we make as Americans is that we prioritize professional development over personal development. We prioritize it. We're like, oh my God, I need the white picket fence. I need this, I need that, and I need this, and I need that. And you kind of forget about yourself.
Yeah.
So like, all the men out there, listen, guys, you're supposed to protect, provide, and lead your household. But how the fuck can you do that? You can't jog down the block.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, take a step back, because your 401k, your life insurance, your car insurance, your medical insurance, all that shit is good. But when the motherfucker comes to punch you in the mouth, none of that shit works for you. So you have to understand, this goes for women as well. Like, by all means, set yourself up, get comfortable, set aside your nest egg, but don't forget about what it is to be human. You know, like, one of the things I want to do, and I know you're from Thailand, if I'm not mistaken, or you have.
Yeah, my mom is from Thailand and Laos.
I'm dying to go to Thailand for like 6 months to one of those Muay Thai camps. Yeah, just go with my family, rent out a nice place near the location and just train for 6 months.
Wow.
You know, and this is why you got to work on yourself, so you'll be able to do those type of events, those type of things. And, you know, and this is high level stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about barely paying my rent. I'm talking about like, okay, I'm going to go to Thailand for 3 to 6 months and take my whole family with me and do a homeschooling. Like, these are the type of conversations we need to have because they're doable.
Yeah. And it's about the experience in that life. With my daughter, I think about the same things. It's like, I only have a few more years and then she's going to go to college. So to me, it's the most important thing to spend as much time and to create a life where I can spend that time with her and be there and be present and not be worrying about, oh, I have this meeting, I have that meeting, I have this deadline. You know, you still have all those things, but it's all about the priorities and how you strategize to prioritize the right things.
For sure. For sure. And how old is your daughter?
She's in high school. She's a freshman.
Oh, God bless.
So, yeah.
My oldest is 7 years old.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Still little. Yeah. Every year is amazing. Every year is a journey, right? But it's been all fantastic and amazing.
She has a great example.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's like, you know, you're a thought leader. You're a leader. You're at the forefront. You're in front of the camera. You know, like, it's like one of the most common fears is like stage fright and public speaking. So, you know, the fact that you're doing it at a high level, it's a great example.
So you talked about what's next. We heard a lot about what inspires and motivates you. Where do people find and follow you and learn more about anything that you're going to be launching that they can participate in, or how they could bring you into wellness for their company?
Thank you for that question. And before I answer it, I just want to tell you, man, the best knowledge is when you share with somebody who's ready to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
So if any of this information resonates with you, please apply it and understand that if I could do it, you can do it. One thing I learned in genetics class is that we're 99.9% identical.
Mm-hmm.
What differs is our 0.01% genetic variability, which makes us an individual. So what works for me will work for you. You know, just understand that if you're suffering in silence, if there's anything that you resonate with or you identify that you can remedy, please do it sooner than later. Because I just recently had a coworker commit suicide.
I'm sorry.
And it was the same thing. I was like, bro, listen, do this, do that. But he waited too long until he did the unthinkable.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, just want to let you guys know there's hope. And I hope you feel some kind of inspiration and motivation from this that will be extrapolated to your day-to-day life, you know? And as far as reaching me, I'm more active on Instagram, but I have a LinkedIn, I have a YouTube channel. I just created my new business as well for corporate wellness. And, you know, just reach out to me on Instagram. It's NYC Streets MD. That's New York City. That's where I'm from. Streets, because I was in the streets before and after my life transformation as a gang member to a lifesaver, and MD because I went from the streets to becoming a medical doctor. So NYC Streets MD on Instagram is one of the best ways you could find me.
Perfect.
I know I need a website as well, and we'll be talking.
Yes, you do.
We'll be talking. I know I need a landing page. I need a website. I need all these things. So we'll talk further.
Nice. Do you have a favorite quote, mantra, or any last words of wisdom you'd like to leave with the audience today?
Sure. Comfort and growth don't coexist. For you to grow, you need to be uncomfortable. If you're comfortable, you're not growing. Wake the fuck up. Like literally, you're not growing with like Oreo crumbs on your belly button with your feet up on the coffee table. So if you're comfortable, you're not growing.
Well, I think we can all agree with that sentiment and having to live in that space. So Can I say one more thing? Yeah.
A real friend is going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. So if for some reason, whether it's myself or anybody ever told you something that kind of ruffled a little bit of your feathers, hey man, the hat fits, wear it. Don't be offended by it, be inspired by it. Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for taking some time today away from everything else that you do to talk to me and to be on the podcast. Really appreciate it. And I know your story will inspire a lot of people listening.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you to our audience for coming to another episode of Your Brand Amplified. I'll be back again in a few days with another amazing, inspirational guest. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.